Hello, I am Adam from WhatCulture.com. Welcome to another edition of WhatCulture Roundtable. The table is still square. Now, as you may know, we here at WhatCulture have published a magazine, or a bookazine, as we called it. You wouldn't know that from the fact that we are putting adverts at the end of pretty much every video, which you guys are very kind about. So we want to dedicate this roundtable to the magazine called Wrestling, which you can buy now at shop.whatculture.com. But I'm joined, as usual, in the roundtable discussions by people who know a lot more than I do. I'm joined by our head of publishing, James Dixon, the ever unpopular James Dixon, as he prefers to be called, and our head managing editor, who, and I'm not making this up, is also called Adam. Adam Cleary, to be precise. Why did you insist on being called Adam?
We're a pyramid scheme of Adams.
We are. We're just multiplying like rabbits in a warren. Exactly like that.
Oh, there's the fan fiction box ticked already. There we are.
Well, you're an Adam now. You're part of the world. The sordid, grubby world of WhatCulture. So, guys, let's start by talking about the magazine bookazine?
We think it's a thing.
Yeah, we don't really know what to call it.
But it's sort of not really a magazine, and it's not really a book, given its sort of quarterly nature and such.
It's quarterly. It's full of amazing illustrations. It's beautifully designed. So let's talk about that first. The design process. Who, what, where, and why, and how.
I mean, it was a group thing, really.
Yeah,
we came up with the idea that it should be something a bit different to everything else that's out there. Because why do the same thing as everybody else? There's already great wrestling magazines out there. Fighting Spirit's, really good and has the sort of contemporary market covered. So we said, let's go a different direction and go with something that's timeless and something that looks completely different and more like a collector's piece that you can cherish, I guess.
True. And then there's the cynical element of it.
Of course.
It's a nightmare to get loads of wrestling photos. And
We had
a brilliant illustrator. So.
The illustrator, who did the amazing illustrations in the book?
It's a guy called Bob Dahlstrom, and he worked with me in a lot of books previously, before I was at WhatCulture, and we said to him, do you think you can do X many pictures in a month? And he said, probably not, but I'll try.
The pictures that are in the book, I can't believe he managed to do that in the short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a hobby for him. He's not a professional. It's just something he did. He's always just liked wrestling and liked drawing and combined the two. And, he never considered something he'd have as a career. And yet, now he's designed the cover and all the interior for a magazine. So he's over the moon about it.
How long did the process take from like cover to cover?
When the initial idea we had about 2 months ago now.
Yeah, as far as actually putting it into practice, it was probably about a month from start to finish, getting everything in, editing everything, getting the images in, and then Adam designing all the page work. Because, I mean, that was all Adam, the whole page design process from start to finish was on you.
Yeah, I think we kind of underestimated how long it was going to take.
I think so.
The 140 pages, illustrations were already done.
Easy.
Articles are going to be all there. Then we actually sort of sat down and when you look at it like a flat plan of 140 blank pages, there's infinite scroll on it. It was like, oh god.
So needless to say, you hate looking at this book, and
Actually,
you never want to see it
I
again.
thought I would. I really did. I'm so sick of it. And then after we said it, it took a week to come back from the printers, of which I was just sweating like every fluid out of every pore. Like, I hope it's all right. If it's broke, it's on me. I thought pages were going to be upside down, and then when it came,
and then you realise you've accidentally misspelled the word wrestling.
A genuine fear.
Even when you look at it so many times and you look, that is how you spell wrestling, yeah? Is that WhatCulture.com? Have we got that right? Is that we work for?
Word blind. Are there typos, hidden little typos?
No.
And is it about 100,000 words we think's in there?
Something like that, yeah.
I found one letter that should be capitalised and a missing R.
Well, burn it down.
The missing R was particularly amusing to us, though, so we weren't overly fussed.
Yeah, it's fine. It's actually a comedy R.
It's a comedy R, yeah. If you can find it, you win a prize. Not an actual
prize. Find our mistakes and you win another copy of the So let's talk about what the good people will be getting when they lay down their hard-earned cash for the magazine. So let's talk about what's inside it. Okay. We'll get to the list in a bit because we've got to talk about that and another list. Another little elephant in the room. But what kind of features are we looking at inside the book itself?
Well,
we've got Daniel Bryan on the cover.
Got Daniel Bryan on the cover. We thought that was, for all we want to be timeless, we thought that was quite timely at the same time because he'd retired. We thought a big feature on his career would probably be appropriate, because that never goes out of date. He's done now.
He's immortalised himself effectively by retiring, so the stuff we've written about him now is not going to change.
In terms of our kind of like looking for a lead feature.
We were unsure, to be honest. We knew what our key list feature was. Obviously, we needed to incorporate lists because they're such a big part of the site, but we didn't want the whole magazine to just be lists, we didn't want it to be repeated articles. There's a couple in there which you may have seen online before that we've changed and added bits to and made them magazine pieces, but we didn't want the whole thing to be that. So when we were trying to come up with something, Brian retiring was timely for us. I mean, it's sad, obviously, we're not happy about it, but as far as from our perspective for putting the magazine out, it was great timing.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you that sense of momentous first.
Yeah, and who better to have on there? A magazine called Wrestling, and you've got a guy who embodies pro wrestling, so it's perfect, really, in that sense, I would say.
Very poetic, yes.
Thank you.
What else, Adam? What other features are we looking at?
Well, the whole idea with the whole being timeless was that we wanted it to, you think of magazines, you think about the month they come out, the sort of time they're around, and then that's it. They're in a pile somewhere in the back of your room. We wanted it to, we wanted people to still be able to buy this in years' time, in 2 years' time. So we've done stuff that is still going to be meaningful, I suppose, and still going to be interesting.
It doesn't lose relevancy.
Yeah, a lot of it's quite historically based, stuff that you won't have considered before. I think my favourite's a Cruiserweight one. I actually really like that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a top 10 piece of the most influential cruiserweights of all time.
I think
it's a great piece written by Scott Fried, and it covers Mexican wrestlers, Japanese wrestlers, American wrestlers, and sort of explains their respective influences over the culture of of cruiserweight wrestling within the various countries. Indeed. And it's got a lot of stuff in there. Even sort of the most ardent wrestling fan, I think there'll be bits and pieces of information in there that people either don't know or maybe haven't considered, or rejogs the memory. One of the pieces in particular we've got, I mean, we don't really need to look through it. I know it off by heart now, but
sure.
There's a piece called, I've stared at them many times, but there's a piece called Wrestling Rarities, which is unusual things that you might not know about or might not have heard of, and the one in there's secret Royal Rumbles, so Royal Rumble matches that weren't on pay-per-view that the WWF have held and promoted as Royal Rumble matches.
For example?
The first one in 1987, which was won by the One Man Gang, that was just on a house show. That was a trial run, and they hated it. The fans hated it. It didn't draw, and they hated the concept. And somehow from that, Vince went, well, we'll just do it on pay-per-view.
Sure.
So, or on TV, rather, I think the first one was. And it was well, it's one of those examples of they get behind the concept, and if they like it, they're doing it anyway. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not a new thing, Roman Reigns. No, it's not.
So obviously, it's not just written by the WhatCulture writers. There's some stuff from industry insiders. So that must have been cool experience, negotiating with those guys, liaising with people inside the industry. What kind of people are we looking at?
I mean, we sort of searched far and wide for people who fit the ethos of what we were going for with the magazine. So, and for different opinions on what you'd maybe get from just a guy who's a writer, we thought, what if we get someone who's also a wrestling personality who's been in the business, and get them to write? So we got Jim Cornette to write something, Shane Douglas, and R.D. Reynolds from WrestleCrap, very popular. I mean, it's a site that I used to look at when I was a fan, before I was involved in anything. Tom Pritchard, who was a trainer in WWE for years, and then we're like, we'll get some interviews as well, make it completely new, different content, and sometimes a little bit silly. Like there's an interview with Nigel McGuinness in there, and it's very much inspired by the Empire magazine interviews, which is sort of off the wall and a little bit whimsical. What did you have for breakfast today? And then discussing the world rather than
which he handles in his stride.
He handles it beautifully. It's completely different to the usual wrestling questions.
How big is Nigel McGuinness's bed?
Have you bought one yet?
You'll have to read to find out. No spoilers.
I'm just
here,
I'm trying to steal this copy basically once the interview's done. So obviously it's a quarterly magazine. So it's sort of like coming in and going out with the seasons. Next season is the summer. What can we expect from a summer issue of a wrestling magazine?
It might be focused on SummerSlam.
What?
Whoa, I know, right?
Imagine.
Again, it's just lining up the timing.
Yeah, I mean, with the timings of it, we didn't even know when we did the first one if it would be a regular thing.
But we didn't know there'd be number two,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it was a product exercise, but we thought we've got all this really cool stuff that we can't really put on the site, doesn't really work on the internet. We just wanted to publish it somehow. We thought, we'll try a magazine or we'll try a book. And thankfully it's done reasonably well enough that it's warrants doing a second
there's
one.
been lots of great feedback online. And
Yeah,
a
sure.
lot of that comes down on your guys' shoulders, so congratulations. It's, again, without blowing too much smoke, it is a great book.
No, blow.
Yeah, blow away. You know.
But, like you said, we list is a big part of WhatCulture. And, of course, the tentpole thing in the magazine is 100 greatest matches of all time.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the word tentpole.
Yes.
That
got me.
Yeah. It's a big list. Compiled by WhatCulture writers and who else?
Everybody.
Everybody we get our hands on, really. We polled writers, wrestlers, promoters. I'm sure there's a fourth kind of human out there.
Yeah, probably. Now, just to address the elephant in the room, guys.
Oh, yeah. We should.
Now, I'm not calling you guys plagiarists because obviously I shouldn't have to. But WWE, at around about the same time, released a book called 100 Greatest Matches.
Do you know what I bet that's nearly as good as?
What's that?
Ours.
WhatCulture.com.
We were surprised by the existence of this.
It really snuck up on us.
It genuinely, no one's going to believe us, but internet. This is the truth.
We trust us.
We did not know this was coming out when we came up with this. We just thought we need a top 100 because, the site is very much based around lists. It's like, well, let's have a big list, in depth. You couldn't get a top 100 on the website. It'd be too long. People wouldn't click through it. But you can get one in a book, and it takes up a lot of the book, or bookazine. And we thought, well, it takes up a lot of a book as well, as you can see. But we just thought, top 100 matches seems like an obvious one. And instead of doing top 100 matches, we thought WWE matches because then you can do something else for ECW or Indies or Japan or WCW. So then this came out, and we were like, okay. But it's fine. I mean, what they've done is obviously a very political book, as any of their releases tend to be. There's always that consideration with anything that's authorized by them.
It's very much on brand. The most represented wrestler in this book is...
We've not done a full head count, but it does appear to be by about 1,000,000 miles Triple H.
If you look in the index at the back and you see how many pages is dedicated to Triple H, and then next to say Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, and there's a disparity there.
Whereas you feel like our book has a little bit more of that independent cred.
There was no politics involved now, as we polled everybody. If people give us a top 10, the one that was number 1 would get 10 points, 9876, go down, amalgamate them all, and we got what we got.
Absolutely.
The variety in what we got was astounding as well.
Absolutely.
I thought it could have very easily just been the same 10 voted for by everybody in a different order, but...
It had been a struggle to come up with the list if it was.
I think most people, and it's also in this book as well, but the Undertaker Shawn Michaels match was, a pretty strong favourite. A lot of people included that in their top 10.
It was quite a good match.
And that did that. Well, I shouldn't mention where it comes in.
It ranks pretty highly.
You'll have to.
It ranks pretty highly. I mean, it's not just. I mean, we said it's a historical. A lot of the content's historical, but not all of it. There's still contemporary stuff in there as well. Just historical contemporary stuff,
But it just has that little bit of kind of extra independence. Chris Benoit obviously features in a lot of matches because
he does. He features in one in this.
Yeah.
With Chris Jericho, and they don't show a picture of his face,
yeah.
obviously. I mean, and we understand that to a degree.
I can't really believe they put a Chris Benoit match in there. I think that's
yeah,
fair
it's
enough.
commendable in a sense, I suppose. But I just think we were saying to him before, if you're gonna do it, do it. Because they've left out so many amazing matches, and they've obviously come to the decision that they can have him in some capacity.
Yeah.
So to sort of cherry pick exactly,
it's a hard situation for him because it's like if they put the amount of matches in there that should be in there, because Benoit was a great wrestler and he features quite a lot in our list. If you'd put him in there 5, 6, 7 times, it's like suddenly you champion him, rather than sort of just acknowledging him, which is what I think now they're acknowledging him but not championing him.
Because
it's a tough one for him.
Because his absence almost speaks louder.
Yeah,
it does.
It
does.
Inclusion.
But obviously we've now pointed this out, so sorry WWE.
I think the major difference I know it's like the 100 greatest matches, but we were so loose with our definition of great.
Yeah.
We wanted people it might be a technically terrible match, but if you enjoyed it, tell us and we'll try and work it in that way. Or there's stuff in there which aren't great to watch, but it's wrestling mastery.
I mean, the prime example of the match that is in here and not in ours is the Hogan Andre WrestleMania 3 match, or the main event match, which drew the highest TV rating ever, for wrestling. And it's, it wasn't up to us what went in there. Yep. It was a vote. and they didn't get enough votes. They got some votes, but not enough. But it's sort of an interesting case study, really, of what the modern wrestling fan or people in the industry sort of see as great.
Yeah.
Now, certain people would see a great match as being great moves, superb in-ring action.
Well, great matches as
Not
well.
always the case, though.
In WWE terms, great matches, they sort of comprise a timeline of things that you
Right.
and it's sort of like a history of their company, and certain matches like the Hogan Andre one sort of have to be in there. Whereas we just have different qualifications.
Yeah, well, I mean, the criteria was so loose. We said whatever you consider to be the 10 greatest. For it could be best drawing, it could be most exciting to watch, it could be most important. However you interpret that criteria is down to you.
It's the writing in there as well, because it's like almost a Wikipedia entry for the matches in there. It takes you through what happened, what the setup was, and what happened afterwards. But every single one of our entries has been written by one of our writers, and there's not an overriding personal theme, but there's definitely a sense of that person cared about that match, and
yeah, absolutely,
more of its significance, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, it's it was a painstaking process. The top 100, it's probably the thing that gives you the most sleepless nights, I guess. Yeah. But I think it's worth it in the end. It is a really interesting sort of study to see what fans do consider. And I think if we did this again in 3 years, it'd probably be very different as well. As people sort of watch more things and change their opinions.
Are there any plans for when you're thinking of future issues of the magazine? Are there plans for more?
Yeah, I mean,
we've got horizon. Can you give the fans a little kind of taste of maybe what's to come in the next few issues?
We've loosely talked about the next 4,
right?
Which obviously from our
enough promotion for them.
Yeah. From our point of view, is great because it wasn't. We never set out to do this with a long-term plan with it. We thought we'll do it, we'll see how it goes, and it looks like it's been well enough received that it's certainly within our interest as a business and our interest as wrestling fans to keep doing it.
Sure.
So obviously we've done something great for the industry, but we've single-handedly saved print journalism at the same time.
Maybe.
We not only saved wrestling, but we've saved magazines.
Some would have the exact opposite opinion, I'm sure, but yeah, I mean, Power Slam was such an important magazine, I think. And Finn Martin's been we'll give a shout out to him because he's been very helpful in this whole process and sort of guiding us through and, the do's and don'ts and such. And he believed that this was probably the way of doing it right.
I don't think we would have done it
we trusted him and believed him.
Because we were at that initial block of, we've got this idea, we like it, but, it's quite unbroken territory. And I think it was you coming back
something completely different, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing, and I think different in any industry is either really good or very risky, and I think we might have just about nailed good this time. So hopefully, I mean, we just want to sort of plug that gap because I miss Power Slam. It's been 2 years in July since Power Slam went, and I miss it. I wish it was still there, and for all fighting spirits here, you need more than that. Wrestling magazines. There used to be so many of them, and they're just slowly dying out, and we didn't want them to die because we all have fun memories of wrestling magazines.
Put that in the editor's letter. It's just for a sphere of interest which has got so many fans and people are so passionate about. When you walk into any magazine place or bookshop, the dearth of stuff available. Yeah. There's a couple of really good titles, but beyond that, there's nothing. There's no big thick quarterly, which we thought there should be.
Absolutely, and again, WhatCulture, we strong critics of wrestling at times,
right?
But ultimately, we're very, very passionate about wrestling, and we love the fact that we're able to command a wide audience. We're able to do stuff like this because, like you say, we want to see these magazines out there, and we want to see more people.
We're absolutely open to people, writing with suggestions of what they'd like to see. We're quite happy to. It's a very malleable product as far as we're concerned. We don't have a set. It has to be this way, If you have something you want to see in there, let us know, and we'll make it happen.
Please write down in the comments if you have particular lists you want to see or features you want to see. Yeah, let us know. We're always open for feedback.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great writing in here from a lot of great writers. We've got some really good features which we think will become regular features, not just from the wrestling side of things, but from other sides of WhatCulture, the movie side and
the oddity section at the back is really interesting because it sort of looks at the wider world of wrestling. It's Hogan's film career. It's some of the music they've used and the people who've produced it. It's just wrestling.
It's about wrestling, but
theme.
not quite wrestling. It's stepping away a little bit.
The wider world of it,
Yeah, and there was some interesting things cropped up as we were putting it together as well. I mean, one of the one of the things I do want to talk about a little bit is the Chris Travis piece in there.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, Chris was a very good friend of mine. I knew him from when I used to wrestle in the UK scene, at the time. And it's, when we found out he was ill, it was sort of hard on everybody. I mean, I wouldn't profess to be his closest friend or anything. I sort of seen him in a couple of years, but we still kept in touch. And it was still hard, though, and I can only imagine how hard it was for the people really close to him. And so we thought, and he passed away as we were putting the thing together, and it was very last minute. It was like, well, it'd be wrong to not do something, especially if this was the only issue that was going to exist. Yeah. We didn't know if there'd be an issue too at that point. So, well, we need to immortalize him because he deserves it, So, absolutely. So that's what we did. So it was probably the hardest piece I've ever written.
It's
I
the best piece in the magazine, I think. It was my favorite from reading through.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was sort of cathartic to write it, and it's nice to have that there for him.
Yeah, something that's set down and on hard copy as well, which comes.
Yeah, it's different. It's a bit more eternal than on the internet. So.
But again, it's something that we couldn't have done online. We couldn't have done it justice online.
Not
it was just another stack in the pile of things we really thought need to get out there somehow.
Yeah.
And again, it's another, for anyone who hadn't heard of Chris Travis, again, it's just one of those things we know the audience that we're catering to, but the ability to take all that different stuff and compile it in one place so that people, if you just turn up for the list or if you just turn up for the Daniel Bryan piece, you get a lot more extra information.
If it educates people on maybe wrestling history or wrestling things that they didn't know or helps them sort of go on the network and look at any of those matches that are in there, because every one of them would be on there, then great, because, preserving wrestling history is something I'm very keen on doing. So.
You are wrestling history.
I am wrestling history, apparently, yeah, because I'm old. But
the walking end of
speaking of wrestling history, I think my favorite piece is actually this one. Because this July coming up,
this page, you need to make it look like an old newspaper.
Page,
you sure? I don't think that'll just make it look like an old newspaper.
And the reason being, because it's actually in July, July 4th, actually, the 100-year anniversary of a very famous match between two guys called Joe Stetcher and Ed Strangler Lewis, who I have no doubt a lot of people have either never heard of or have heard the names but don't really know who they are.
He's one of the guys behind the slam bang wrestling style wrestling, right? That kind of those.
I mean, he's sort of one of the pioneers.
One of the Gold Rush trio guys. Or have I got that wrong?
It sounds about right. I don't know. I don't know, because my knowledge of it is, it was 100 years ago. Sure. You know what I mean?
You were a young
but the
man
guy we
then.
worked with, I was a young man then, but the guy we worked with, Steve Yohei, is a noted wrestling historian, and he is the bastion of knowledge for that time period, and he knows everything. And together we worked on this piece about a 5.5-hour match they had.
Wow.
And now back then wrestling was sort of real, but sort of not. And there was this sort of section of the audience called the gamblers who would bet on the wrestling. And that's kind of why it ended up becoming a work completely. And it's quite interesting to look back on how it used to be. The lights went down, so they were going to call it a draw, but then people brought the cars up to the ring and put the headlights on to keep it going.
So fast.
Yeah, well, because the gamblers were sure that Ed Lewis was going to get beat. So it was an interesting time for wrestling. Very different, but it is quite fascinating if you can sort of get through sort of the turgid nature of it a little bit. Sure. It is interesting once you sort of explore it in detail.
So 100 years of wrestling history compiled in,
right?
Dare we say the best magazine ever written?
I mean,
yes,
we can't say that, but if anyone else was to say it, we wouldn't argue too vehemently with it.
Obviously, we talked about this book for coming up on half an hour. We're very proud of it. So we'll draw the discussion to a close, and hoping that if at any point during this conversation you're interested in Pete, do please check out a copy at shop.whatculture.com. And knowing us, we'll probably put a little advert
after this.
But thank you for being patient with those, by the way. We do appreciate it. So, guys, any kind of final thoughts from working on the magazine? Well, Adam, what's it like to be an Adam on WhatCulture now that you finally made your camera debut?
I don't know. I'm nervous.
The Triforce of Adams.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the reaction's going to be.
I mean,
fan fiction.
It's going to be the threesome.
You and Jack
itself,
in a dirty romp somewhere.
Adam versus Adam in a hayloft.
Oh, that would actually be quite good.
What? Your words, not mine.
I'd be
my
up for
friend.
that.
You'd be up for that. At least it'd be warm. So we've ended as classily as it was possible
As ever, yeah.
So once again, thanks James, thanks Adam
Thank
for joining me. This has been What Culture Roundtable by the magazine, for the love of God, by the magazine. Thank you. I've been Adam from WhatCulture.com. We'll see you soon.